All right, greetings, guys. How are you? Thank you for joining us for another installment. Today's topic is going to be about what happens when you're a defendant and you miss court, superior court. And we're talking about things like arraignments or calendar calls, or even the motions calendar. What happens, what you can expect to happen. Usually, none of it is good, and we'll talk about that shortly. But essentially, how the court might respond or how the judge might respond, maybe what you can do to remedy things in terms of getting in contact with your counsel. And so that is today's topic, and we're talking specifically about superior court. So essentially, felony level crimes where you may be the defendant. Okay. As always, quick introduction. My name is Genghis Shakhan. I'm the managing attorney at a boutique law firm known as Shakhan and Wilkerson Law. Myself and attorney Chelsea Wilkerson, we are small intentionally, and that is, of course, so that we can deal with our clients and really serve them in a meaningful way where we really get to know them and get to know their cases. So we are, again, small on purpose. So we have no desire, goals to be a big, booming law firm where our clients are just numbers. So we think of our clients as family, and so we really work hard to make certain that their legal goals are met. Okay. All right. That being said, if you are looking for schedule a consultation, get this out the way really quickly. You can always go to the link in our bio, and that is right there above. If this video is helpful for you, as always, make sure you like and follow us. And let me go ahead and also get the disclaimer out the way, okay? This video is for educational purposes only, okay? By watching this video, it does not establish an attorney-client relationship between you and the law firm of Shakhan and Wilkerson, or you and myself, Genghis Shakhan, okay? So just sit back, and we have a great video in store for you. We're going to talk a little bit about, again, what happens when you fail to appear for court, okay? So one of the worst things that you can do as a criminal defendant is not appear for court when your case is called, okay? Or just simply not showing up. And so whether that's, I mentioned, an arraignment, a calendar call, a motions hearing, or even if it's the trial itself, it is always a big no-no to not appear because it can have serious consequences for your absence. And so we're going to discuss what that can mean for you today. Okay, so let's start with, and usually I'll do a quick roadmap. We're going to talk about arraignments. We're going to talk a little bit about motions. We're going to talk about calendar call. We're going to talk about failure to appear, bench warrants, all of that. And of course, a judge has a lot of potential ways to encourage and motivate folks to show up to court. And so we're going to discuss all of that here in this sitting. Okay. So let's start with the arraignment. So there is another video, I believe, in our library. If you don't know what an arraignment is, I'm just going to get a quick rendition of it, but do take a look at that video. It's very, very helpful. So arraignment basically is just a formal reading of the charges. The judge is going to go through your rights, the things that you're entitled to. You can enter this is where you enter your plea of guilty, or your plea of not guilty. I would say 99% of defendants are going to say not guilty. And then, of course, this is where your deadlines essentially begin. So things like discovery requests, a lot of that stuff is tethered to the date of that arraignment. Okay. And so really important that you're present, unless there's been a waiver signed and your attorney lets you know that you don't need to be present because they've been in contact with the court, and that's something that your attorney will communicate to you. But it's something that you, of course, need to generally be present for, all right, unless you've been excused. And so also, this is sometimes where future court dates might be scheduled, okay? So it's really important if you have counsel, to be in communication with your attorney, because they can let you know essentially what the next steps are going to be following that arraignment, all right? And that's usually the next hearing following a formal indictment, okay? So let's move on to what a calendar call is. And so it's important that you know what these things are because they are happening. If you're a defendant, they are happening in your case, and literally the clock is ticking, especially after you've been indicted. Following that arraignment. And so it's important to kind of use these as roadmaps, not a roadmaps, but as essentially touchstones on where you need to or where your case is headed to next. All right. And so a calendar call essentially is really a status hearing. And it's where the judge kind of checks whether the parties are ready for the case to be heard. And the parties are going to be you. Obviously, in the state of Georgia, it's going to be the state of Georgia. Okay. And so there might be a discussion about discovery. There may be even some plea negotiations. Sometimes that might happen around calendar call time. It can happen before calendar call. Then it might be the trial might be scheduled. Okay, frequently that does happen at calendar call. Right, the trial is essentially calendared, and your case is set to be heard. Usually, of course, before a jury, if you are a criminal defendant. All right. And then, of course, if there are outstanding motions, those things might need to be addressed as well. And they may be addressed by the court. Sometimes you might get a continuance. Okay. Just again, depending on what's happening and the status of your actual case. And so sometimes you can have several calendar calls before trial. That does happen. Okay. Now, what happens if you don't show up? And so that is the meat and potatoes of why we're here today. What happens to me if I don't show up for court, Attorney Shakhan? Well, let me tell you what happens. Okay, so a few things can happen. The one that you're going to be most familiar with is that the judge is going to issue a bench warrant. Okay, and that bench warrant for your arrest. And I'll tell you what a bench warrant here is momentarily. But a judge, if you have a bond, your bond can be revoked or your bond can be forfeited, right? And so if you bonded out because you were arrested in relation to this charge, that bond might be in jeopardy. And then there could be a new arrest. Okay, so you might be newly arrested, and that can even be associated with that bench warrant. And then you can be jailed again, right? So now you're back in jail if you just recently bonded out for that very charge because you did not appear at your arraignment, right? Or at a calendar call. And then there could be additional bond conditions. And it's just going to delay resolving your case. Okay. And so, for those folks, one of the major questions we get is how long is it going to take before my matter is adjudicated? How long is it going to take before I get in front of a judge? So not appearing in court is going to create some significant delays potentially. Okay. So I talked to you about what a bench warrant is. Let me be more specific. And this usually is issued if you're failing to appear for court, and the judge basically enters a bench warrant for your arrest and detainment, and it authorizes law enforcement to arrest you. Okay, and so usually, I'm not gonna say usually, but you can be arrested. Many times, folks are picked up at traffic stops. All right. And sometimes people who didn't know they had bench warrants learn of those bench warrants at that traffic stop. Okay. So you might be arrested at home. You could be arrested at work. You can be arrested, during a traffic stop, anywhere where law enforcement might encounter you. All right. So if there's a bench warrant, then you will be picked up. You will be detained. And you will be returned to jail. All right. Especially if you bonded out. Or let's move on to the bond. I talked a little bit about bonds just a few moments ago. Your bond might be revoked. Okay. And so if you were out on bond, the court may revoke that bond. Okay. Or they can increase your bond, or they can, put more restrictions on you and on your or conditions of bond, or they can require another bond hearing. Okay. So important to understand that. And then you could always remain in jail until your case proceeds and goes forward. That's another possibility. Okay. And so not appearing in court, it does injure and hurt and harm your credibility. Judges notice it. It's your responsibility, of course, to keep up with those dates and those times. And obviously, if you have counsel, they'll assist in that process. They may do it for you. And it's your, you have to respect the court's orders. And the expectation is that you're always going to be in compliance with those bond conditions. And failing to do so is going to negatively impact how the court views your reliability. And you may say, you know what, I can care less how the court views my reliability. That might be okay, maybe in that one particular case. But again, if you have future cases, okay, where again, it pops up that you have failed to appear in the past, it could harm you in the future as well. Okay. And so that's something that sometimes folks are not as mindful of, is they see, very short term, as opposed to seeing, the long game. And so you do want to make sure that, if you have those appearances, calendar calls or arraignments, that you're there and you're present for them, and that you're in communication with your counsel, especially if you've relocated. It's good to reach out to your counsel, give them your address. At the same time, any kind of new contact information, you had a telephone number change. And I will also say this: reach out to the court and do the same thing, because the court frequently, and that's the clerk, the court frequently mails communications, a communique regarding actual hearings and times. They still use snail mail, so you may not receive anything via email. If you're looking for an email, and the court's certainly not going to call you and let you know that you are on the calendar. So if you are not someone that looks at your mail regularly during this time, then you may want to be in contact with whatever your counselor is in terms of the law firm. All right. So sometimes people believe if they just stick their head in the sand like an ostrich, that these cases go away. Okay. And it is a big mistake if that's your take on things, because they do not, right? That's a huge mistake. And so if you don't show up, the charges don't disappear. And in many cases, the case continues. In most cases, even if it can go on for years, right? A court might dead docket your case, and then revisit it. And then, of course, if they can't track you down, someone may be put on the case, depending on how egregious the infraction, to come hunt you down. Okay, so there are men in law enforcement and women that specialize in finding people. Okay, and so if they have to come find you, then you might expect to sit around in jail until your case is called. Okay, and that could be some time, right? Just depending on the jurisdiction. All right, so the situation can oftentimes, when a warrant is issued, just make things more complicated. So you do want to be wary of that. All right, and so sometimes there are valid reasons that people have for missing court, and they're all the same reasons people may have for missing work. There are emergencies. Emergencies do happen. You just have to be in communication with the court. More specifically, probably communication with your counsel. There are medical emergencies, hospitalizations, car wrecks. Maybe sometimes even the incorrect notice goes out, right? Scheduling confusion with the court. And so sometimes there's just, again, an unavoidable emergency. Something might happen to a minor child. I've seen folks who are pregnant, and they are, in the throes of childbirth. Anything can happen, right? And so, whether or not it's important enough that the court excuses you, that's going to be between you and the judge and your counsel and perhaps the prosecutor. And of course, that's assuming that every time your case is called for calendar call, you don't have a personal emergency. So all of that is going to, again, be between you and the judge. But you do want to make sure that you're in communications with the court. Okay. Now, what should you do if you miss court? One, don't miss court. The one legal advice I could give you is don't miss court. If you have to, of course, don't panic, but don't hide, and don't wait weeks to try to get it addressed. Instead, you want to contact your counsel immediately. Let them know what's going on, so your counsel can be in contact with the court. And then, of course, they can find out if there's a warrant that's been issued, right? If the warrant has been issued, then that warrant's going to need to be addressed. And then you're going to have to, of course, follow all advice of your counsel at that time. All right. So gathering documentation if there was an emergency. All right. So if you were in a car accident and you were laid up in, let's just say this was in Fulton County, you were laid up in Grady, that you might need to go ahead and grab your paperwork, so you can forward that stuff on to your counsel, so that they can communicate that stuff and forward it along to the court. Okay, so the sooner the matter is addressed, the better. Okay, and so how can your attorney help you out when it comes to, if you fail to appear to court, they can help you in a number of ways. One, they may be able to contact the prosecutor in your case, contact the judge's staff where appropriate, make them aware of what's going on. They can find out sometimes whether a bench warrant was issued. And if that bench warrant was issued, they can file a motion to quash the bench warrant, a motion to recall the bench warrant where it's appropriate, or they can request the court to put your matter back onto the calendar, especially if it was like dead docketed. And they can explain the circumstances surrounding your absence and advocate for, maybe if you have a bond, reinstatement, or modification of that bond, okay, where appropriate. Okay, so they can help minimize any additional consequences and mitigate things for you as well. So that is the value of having counsel, of course, as opposed to being pro se and trying to do all of that stuff yourself. It makes it more challenging. But if you do have counsel, it's counsel would be more than, I think, capable of advocating for you in that capacity. Okay. Now, how to avoid missing court? This is easy, guys. You need to save every court date. Use your phone calendar, right? Set multiple deadlines. You can do that. Reminders in your phone. Confirm dates with your attorney. You can contact your attorney's office if you can't reach a counselor. You can maybe reach a paralegal that will let you know when you're scheduled to be in court. Again, I've mentioned this: notify your attorney as well as the clerk of any telephone number changes, address changes, and of course, arrive in court early so that you can make sure that you are supposed to appear that day. You are where you need to be. Sometimes, folks end up landing in the wrong courtroom. Sometimes they find out they're in the wrong county. Believe it or not, that's happened to me. Okay, so it's like you may have written down something incorrectly. Maybe I've written down Peach County and I'm supposed to be in Bibb, or you write down Cobb County, however you're supposed to be in Fayette, or in Richmond County and you're supposed to be in Chatham. So the stuff happens, mistakes do happen. And so, you do want to make sure you're in communication with the court. And if that happens, and it has happened in the past to me, on a personal level, so I'm letting you know it happens to attorneys, it happens to judges, believe it or not, and it happens to defendants. And so you just want to make sure that you're in communication with the court, right? And so some of the myths that are out there surrounding missed court is that judges don't notice. That's just not true. Your name is called, okay? And sometimes they will even, depending on the court, they will even sound in the hallways of the courthouse to make sure that if you're in the hallway or in the restroom, that you hear your name called, okay? They'll holler out there for you. So that is just not true. And the prosecutor will take note of your absence. The judge will take note of your absence, okay? Or if you even say to yourself, you'll explain it later, and maybe you will explain it later, but sometimes a judge, depending on the judge, they'll issue that warrant there, or the prosecutor will motion for a warrant and the judge will grant it, or they'll wait for the end of the hearing to see if you arrive. They'll wait for sometimes late stragglers. Depends on the judge, depends on the jurisdiction. And then another big myth is that your lawyer will automatically, because your lawyer is going to appear, you're automatically excused. And that's just, again, not necessarily the case. You do need to be in contact with your attorney. They will let you know whether or not you need to appear or not, okay? So as my final advice to you would be that court dates are really important. They're serious obligations. You need to make certain that you honor your obligation and your commitment to be there. If you don't understand when you need to appear or where you need to appear or whether your appearance is required, you do need to reach out to your attorney. If you don't have an attorney, you may want to think about obtaining an attorney. Okay, so missing an arraignment calendar can affect your freedom. Okay, same with if you're missing a calendar call. All right, and so it also might impact or impede the progress of your case, and really slow to a crawl, how soon your case might be resolved. Okay, so you want to stay in contact. Remember, with your counsel, you want to update everyone regarding any kind of contact, that information that might have been changed or modified in any way, and then you want to keep track of your court dates. That is the way that you combat that. Okay. All right. As always, guys, if this has been helpful, please like this video. If you know anyone who has a court case, I think this video might be, or you think this video might be helpful to them, please go ahead and forward this along to them. Make sure that you like and follow us for all things legal education in terms of criminal defense and family law. We have a lot of information, a lot of great videos in our library, so make sure you scroll through them all and check them all out. In addition, if you need a lawyer, you are welcome to give us a call at 404-999-9529 or 478-845-1213. We handle everything criminal defense, as well as divorce, child custody, family law, and men's rights. We'd be more than happy to talk with you in a consultation to see if we might be able to help you out moving forward in your case. Okay. All right. So hopefully this has been helpful. Do make sure again that you like, you follow, and scroll through those videos. And sometimes we will look through the comments for if you have questions, if you have concerns for future videos. So feel free to comment on any of our videos, and we might pick your concern or your query for one of our next videos. Okay, guys? Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you next.